I was once so constipated that the doctor had to manually assist me with the turd birth. Reddit, what are some of your most embarrassing medical stories? It was 6 years ago when I was 18. I had been in my first year of college, so needless to say my student diet wasn't that great. My boyfriend and I were house sitting for a friend, and on the third night there I was awoken to the most terrible stabbing pain in my stomach. I tried to get to the bathroom, but I ended up collapsing on the floor in a near fetal position, barely able to breathe and sweating profusely. My boyfriend hears me fall, and gets up to see what is wrong. I can't speak, the pain is so great and I am having a hard time breathing, so he painstakingly leads me to our friend's car and drives me to the hospital. At this point I'm in so much pain from him not really knowing how to drive a stick, and jerking and stalling along the way that he has to go in and ask for assistance. I'm loaded onto a gurney and strapped in, because the outstretched position nearly kills me with pain, and I start lashing out. After the doctor cuts off my clothes and sees no outward injuries on my stomach, he begins to compress on my stomach, which nearly makes me pass out. He thinks my appendix must have burst, or that I had a ruptured intestine. I'm administered IV morphine and finally get some relief. They roll me down the hall and take some Instagrams of my stomach. To get the x-rays back takes a while, so while we were all awaiting the pics, I was administered more morphine. Eventually, a big woman with a Texas accent enters the room and exclaims, "You're full of shit." "What?" I ask, completely confused and holding my stomach. "I'm serious. I'm in a lot of pain." "Oh, no doubt," she said, and pulls out an x-ray of my stomach. "See all that white in your guts?" She points with her pen and traces all the way from my anus up through my large intestines. "You are literally full of shit. I have never seen someone so full of shit in my life." My boyfriend erupts in laughter, and the nurse is trying her best to hide her amusement as she has been tending me through the hours, and knows that I am obviously in a lot of pain. I groan, but am a bit amused myself. It was pretty funny, after all. I asked the doctor what they were going to do about it, and she said that they were going to do an enema and see how that went. I was given laxatives and a ton of water, and told to wait 20 minutes. I can feel my stomach rumbling a bit at this point, and it hurts me a lot when it does. Eventually a nurse wheels in what looks like a dominatrix X-rack, complete with ankle and wrist straps. My boyfriend again erupts into a fit of laughter. I am not amused this time. I'm starting to get a bit embarrassed, so before we begin I ask that he leave. He pretty much begs me to let him stay, but I'm having none of it. After he leaves, the nurse wheels in what looks to be some sort of futuristic pressure washer. I'm pretty much right. She straps my ankles and wrists to the rack in an upright position, and proceeds to insert the tube into my ass. It's uncomfortable and cold, but hey, I'm gay so it's like, whatever. She then turns it on, and like the first mate on the Titanic begins to slowly increase power and pressure. I can feel and see my stomach begin to inflate slightly, and oh mercy does it hurt like nothing else. It felt like knives were pushing out of me now, ever so slowly. I cry out, but she insists more power, and I keep filling up like a balloon, hollering in agony. After a minute or so of constant pressure, she turns it off and tells me to clench up, because she was removing the tube. I want nothing more than to do just the opposite, but I assume she knows what she's doing, and follow orders. She then attached another tube to a hose and inserts it. This one is much bigger, and the lube is cold as duck, but I'm gay so it's still whatever. She then proceeds to hoover my mother ducking insides. After 30 seconds I hear a hum. I ask her what the problem was, and she told me nothing was coming out, but I begged her not to pressure wash my guts again. At this time the doc comes in as she's pulling out my butt plug, and informs me that the shit packed in my colon is too wide in girth to be machine enemaed out. She was going to have to do this manually. She has the nurse grab a bucket, a plain white janitor's bucket, and puts it underneath me. She then puts on the latex gloves, completely lubes up her hands, and begins what I consider to be some sort of medical finger bang to loosen me up. After a while of this, I was trying to keep my mind focused on something other than this butch PE teacher looking southern woman giving me ass play legally, so I wasn't keeping track of time. She brings out a stretching device and begins to open me with it. At this point I feel so ashamed of myself, but I'm also doped out of my mind. The pain begins to come back in full force, and I start shouting for more painkillers, but Lady MacGyver down there tells me that they can't administer more, because it will stop me up even more. I'm just going to have to deal with it until they can unclog me. So, I endure as I'm being stretched. It hurts like hell down on my asshole too. I feel her fingers in there, and she tells me to push. So, I push. I push so hard that I feel like the blood vessels in my face are popping. My head starts to bang. I'm pushing hard and she's telling me to push more. I must have been screaming my head off. I can't imagine that I wasn't. Finally, I felt something give. She told me to push more, and I did. I could feel things moving. So, I pushed some more. After a minute I finally feel myself deflating, as water and shit debris tumble out into the bucket. It all happened very quick after that. I was an obstructed and gushing hot lava a minute later, and finally felt complete, utter, blissful relief. I was told after I woke up in the hospital 8 hours later, around 5 PM, that the doc literally helped deliver my shit child. I had never been more embarrassed in my life. But, as time passes, and my humor evolves, I find myself laughing about it. I changed my diet immediately after, and have a good healthy bowel movement at least once a day. I found it strange how my depression lifted a lot after that. I had been severely depressed for a couple of weeks before that, and I found out that being constipated does that. So, your turn. TLDR, got severely constipated, so much that I had to go to the ER, where enemas and laxatives didn't work. A woman doctor had to crank my asshole open and help me deliver a shit baby with her hands. My father is a nurse. He used to be an ER nurse. He now works in patient transport, which is a bit less nutty. He once came home from a night shift and said to me, with a straight face, "You know you're a trained professional when you manage to keep a straight face while taking a lava lamp out of a woman." I did not stop laughing for a solid minute. My stepmom is an ER nurse, and from some of the stories she's told me, the ER is something of a human indoor plumbing service. When I was 12, my school district required any kids going out for sports to have a physical. This included the whole, don't drink, don't smoke, let's take your blood pressure, check your vitals, etc. Well, the last, and most embarrassing part for a 12-year-old boy is having the doctor examine your penis groin for hernia. Luckily for me, I got a smoking hot female med student to perform my physical. Managed to pop an erection right around the time she asked me to remove my shorts. She tried to act very professional while examining my newly developed manhood, before exclaiming, "I'm sorry, but isn't he too young to have an erection?" before bursting out in laughter and leaving the room. Her supervising physician, male, finished the exam while trying to hold back awkward giggles of his own. Meanwhile, my father was wiping back tears of hysteria after witnessing what he was certain to be the most humiliating moment of his son's life. This pretty young nurse used to hang out in my room in the couple of days before my surgery. She gave me company, and I was her escape from rude old men. She always smelled nice. So the surgery was at the end of my spine, or top of my ass basically. I was a hairy mother ducker even in high school. So this one time she comes in with breakfast, and I'm like, "Hey." And she's got dead eyes and a stone face. "Turn around please." I do, and off comes the gown, and she starts shaving my ass for the next hour. It was never the same after that. When I was about 10, I had an abscess in my ass. Like right next to my asshole. I went to the doctor's office to get it checked out, and they decided they had to pop it. I'd gotten these things semi-often, and I had to operate away some tissue or something. Still have an ass scar. Anyway, the nurse that drew the shortest straw had to pop an abscess inside a 10-year-old ass. It might be that it was kinda big, or that it was under a lot of pressure, but she got sprayed by a pus fountain. From my ass. TLDR, sprayed nurse with ass pus. I became sexually active when I turned 18. I knew about eggs, where babies came from, etc. Thanks to ex-ed classes. So my boyfriend at the time and I had protected eggs, condoms and birth control. He was paranoid. 99.9% of the time we had sex. Well, we slipped up once, but I thought, no big deal. I'm on birth control anyway. Weeks later, I'm a couple hours away from taking a test for a class, and I get these cold sweats. I'm talking extreme. Then I get this ridiculous pain close to where I thought my ovaries were. I felt like I was dying. I googled my symptoms, and the first thing to pop up was an ectopic pregnancy. I immediately panicked. I went to my professor, who saw that I was in no state to even come to class. He sent me home. I asked my friend to drive me to the ER. I saw the doctor and told him of my suspicions. He asked me what I had eaten that day and pushed down on certain areas of my stomach. Turns out, the food I ate and the time I ate it gave me gas that got trapped. TLDR, thought I was pregnant, turned out to be a fart. I can't wait for the moment when your child will ask about brothers and sisters. You almost had a brother once. It was a fart though. One night back in high school, I woke up with ungodly stomach pains in the middle of the night. I spent an hour in the bathroom trying to vomit or poop so the pain would go away. Eventually my mother drove me to the hospital, and after half an hour in the ER, I finally got a room. The nurse came in to do all that pre-doctor stuff, and the moment she leaves I'll let rip a giant fart and feel 100% better. We left shortly after that, and yes, it was awkward. I had a rash develop on my left armpit when I was 18. It was awful. So bad that it looked like one of those frosty burns which kids used to give to each other with cans of deodorant. I assumed that I was an idiot and had given myself a frosty by using deodorant too vigorously. Eventually got to the doctor and I explained how I had given myself a frosty. He just looked at me for a while before saying, "I don't know what a frosty is, and I don't condone those, but I can tell you that this is impetigo. A rash mainly developed by dirty 2 to 5 year olds. In a similar vein to OP, I too was once constipated. I was roughly 12 to 13 at the time and didn't really know about constipation. Every now and then a nugget would pop out and I simply thought that's all the poop I had to do. Until one sunny afternoon, I experienced a bad cramp in my gut. A contraction, if you will. I spoke to my mother, who is a nurse at a hospital, and explained my predicament. We went to our local doctor, and he explained that I had a poop backlog, and it could really do with being evacuated quite soon. Looking back on it, this did take place over about 9 months. I was checked into another hospital, not the one my mother works at, in a few days, and administered suppositories. No effect. I then received an enema. This also had no effect. Over the course of the next 2 days, I received another set of suppositories and 2 enemas. Then one night while I was asleep, my body let its guard down. I awoke with another contraction, and feeling the imminent doom that was about to escape my anus, I headed for the lavatory. As I sat down on the toilet, I heard what could only be described as the gates of hell being opened, and felt my body literally become about 5 pounds lighter in 3 seconds. My entire lower body went numb. As I tried to move, the small of my back ached. I called for a nurse, and after being helped back to bed I overheard the words, "waste team," being said. I spent the next 10 hours in a deep sleep, whilst I spent the next day in a wheelchair, before being able to use my legs again, and that toilet was out of use for 3 more days. I think they had to replace it.